want to know who those manly men are.
Who are those guys with mountain men beards?
Did anyone attempt to shave on the trip? Yeah, not to hassle with that one, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Slice. You would have needed a whole roll of toilet paper to. Oh my gosh. It looks like yours was pretty long. But Mike, yours is really full too. Wow. Well, hi folks. Good to have you here. I think this is going to be thrilling, and certainly to our eyes, and our minds, but I think to our hearts, You think of those adventures that we come up with. Has anyone come up with one quite as extreme as this? Yeah. So I'm going to invite them up in just a moment, Mark and Mike, but why don't we just go before the Lord and ask his blessing on our time together. Lord, we do thank you so much for this evening and, Lord, the time to reflect and to hear, Lord, the reflections on this incredible adventure and really to bring a spotlight, Lord, on those guys, these two guys and their team as they look to, Lord, help and put the word out there that our first responders need, Lord, just encouragement and help and support. So God, bless tonight as they share their hearts and their thoughts. And God, do stir us, Lord, to continue in our own way, in our own lives, to take steps and to, Lord, be thrilled by what you do through our lives. We thank you. It's in your precious name, Jesus, we pray. Amen? Amen. Well, guys, I'm Andy, by the way. I pastor the church here, but I want to introduce two of the three guys. Did you ever get called like the Three Musketeers or maybe the Three Stooges? Was it?
Probably more the Three Stooges.
So here's Mark. Oops. Here's Mark and Mike.
Well, good evening. Thanks for being here. I know what you're thinking. There was three of us when we left. Now there's two up here. Jared did come back. He's actually in Minnesota, moving his mom down here in a U-Haul, so he'll be maybe just as much of an adventure as this. But anyway, we're going to share tonight our story, and I'm going to bring it back a little bit. Some of you were here, I think it's 2 years ago this month, we gave a presentation here at the church on what we were planning to do. And I talked a little bit then about Guardian. I'm going to take it even back a little bit further on how that all really started tonight. And then we'll open it up for some questions at the end. So I'll take next slide, please. Let's do a video then. That's even better. Less talking.
Mary's ready, Team Guardians ready. Farmington, San Juan County, New Mexico is ready. Let's do this. Don't get scared now.
51 days, 17 hours, and 18 minutes.
Thank you. I think a lot went into that 51 days, as you know. So again, bringing it back, we're going to get into some of the stuff we saw in there, bringing it back. How did all this start? A lot of people ask, why ocean rowing, especially New Mexico, right? Why ocean rowing? So for me, back in 2012, a series of books and videos led me to ocean rowing. Now I grew up, if you remember, I grew up Middletown, Rhode Island, Newport, Rhode Island. I'm about a mile from the beach. And so I was on the ocean constantly as a kid, and I liked the ocean. But then when I lived there, I climbed mountains. Now I moved to the mountains. I decided to row an ocean. But I'd never heard of ocean rowing. And so I read these, and I thought, this is really cool. I would love to do this. And so I asked my wife about if I can do it, and here's her response. No. So I get it. I totally understand. You know, I got little kids, and so I say, all right, fine, and I leave it to rest. Next, please. So let's fast forward then about 6 years. I give Robin, my wife, one of these books to read, and I think one evening we're watching some YouTube videos, and I find this YouTube video called Losing Sight of Shore. You see it right there, or maybe it's on Netflix, and I share it with Jared. Now, I work with Jared. Remember, Jared and I work together at the Sheriff's Office. I share it with him. But just to share it with him, I wasn't saying, let's go do this. And then Jared comes back a couple days later saying, let's do this. I said, are you serious? And he said, yes. By this time, my wife, I've got life insurance. Kids are a little older. She says, yeah, that's fine. Go. And so she agrees to do it. Well, now it's on. And here, if you don't know me, once I say I'm going to do something, I can't back out. So I have to be really careful saying, yes, I'll do something, because, even early on, I remember thinking, I can't not do this now, because I told a bunch of people, like 5 people, I'm going to do it, so I can't not do it. We have decisions to make now. Jared and I have some decisions to make. We're going to row an ocean. There's a lot of stuff we don't know, including how to row across an ocean, but part of it is, are we going to row across the Atlantic, or are we going to row across the Pacific? We decided to do the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge, if you remember. Fun fact, the year we rowed was the last year it was the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge. It is now just called the world's toughest row. I don't know if it got harder or what, but they don't have, we like the world's toughest row. We didn't have any Talisker Whiskey, but. So we agreed to do the Talisker Whiskey. Just a couple facts, fun facts I threw in this presentation. The deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean is called the Milwaukee Depth, and it's really close to Puerto Rico, really close to land. I would have thought it was out in the middle of the ocean. It's like 27,500 feet deep right there. I think the average depth, looking at charts for our row, is about 15,000 feet. So as we were rowing across the ocean, about 15,000 feet of water below us. Mike was the first one to jump in. We waited to see what was going to come out of the depths. Next slide. So everybody rows for a cause, and if you remember, we're rowing for first responder mental wellness. I work for the Sheriff's Office. Jared works for the Sheriff's Office. Mike's retired from the Sheriff's Office. And we decided we're going to row for first responder mental wellness. Now, the mental wellness issue with first responders is bigger than most people know about it. I think if most everyone was here, you understand the struggles first responders face, the continual exposure to traumatic events causing this cumulative trauma. Oftentimes, they may not know how to process that trauma. They may not have the support systems, and so we decided we wanted to help this cause for all first responders in all the Four Corners area. So we started our nonprofit, Guardian Initiatives, and with our mission to help first responders. We're, like I said, working for all first responders in the four corners: fire, police, EMS, dispatch. And our approach is to bring awareness of the problem, to have these talks, to get out in public and talk to people about the problem of first responder mental wellness. We all of us probably know a first responder or two or three, okay? Most first responders, because of the personality types, they're not going to talk about those issues that they face. And so, but understanding and knowing the problem exists. So bringing awareness to it, helping bring in training. We facilitated some different trainings, not just to first responders and agencies, but also to clinicians on how to treat first responders. Helping with treatment costs. We're actually at a point now, the row and our mission's been successful enough. We're at a point now where we have money set aside for treatment costs if needed. And also resource sharing and collaboration. And I don't know if we mentioned that one when we were here last time. We met a lot of different people, a lot of great organizations out there willing to help first responders, and so now we're able to help share some of those. Some of the charts or the line of duty deaths versus suicide deaths. You know, in 2022, there was 164 line of duty deaths, almost as many documented suicides. And please remember, on the suicides, they're not reported as well as the line of duty deaths. So when we see those suicide numbers, probably about 50 or 60% of what actually occurred is documented there. Whereas line of duty deaths are very, very well documented. So we see, again, all the training we do, all the equipment we carry, all the tactics we practice, and yet oftentimes our bigger threat is from ourselves, from not handling, not processing, and not having a system for handling the trauma that we experience. So it was a 4-year preparation. Again, we had a lot of stuff to do. First, we had to establish a team. Remember, it's just Jared and I at this time, and we wanted to row as a 4-person team. The risk manager and me came up and was like, okay, look, this is dangerous. So we want to make this as least dangerous as possible. Let's have 4 people. We had a guy early on, and so we were 3, and then he backed out. And we had another guy come in, and then he backed out. And then the Lord put Mike's route in front of us, and we came together at one of these trainings and told him, and the Lord put blinders on him, and he said, yeah, let's do this. And he joined us. And we're grateful for that. And we tried to get another 4th person, but we never could. And we didn't think it would be so hard to find somebody in New Mexico to want to row an ocean, but it is. So we had a lot to do. We had to establish our team. We had fundraising and sponsorships to come up with and get all this, the money we're trying to raise, not just for our organization, but for the row itself. Obtain a boat. Where do you get a boat to row across an ocean? I know we had it here a couple years ago. We've since been able to get rid of the boat. We sold it to another team. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but that was a blessing to put that money back in our organization. Required classes. We had to take ocean rowing class, which would teach us about, different things in rowing in ocean. We had our navigation class, our sea survival, our first aid, our radio operations. This brought us Mike coming up from Albuquerque constantly, if not every week, every other week. And we went to England together to train and learn some of this stuff from experienced ocean rowers. We had on-water training to do. We were in Florida training. We were here at Navajo Lake training a lot. And training in the UK as well. We had to finalize all of our equipment. I mean, this was nonstop. It was like a second job. This is, at the time I was in school, I put school aside to, I think we all put our lives on hold, really, for this time to get everything ready. Finalize the equipment. Food testing, that was a fun part of it. But really figuring out what food are we going to take? What food do we want to have? What do we like? Realizing that we may not even like it when we get out there, because your tastes change out on the water. Pre-shipping inspections, we had to have inspections from the race coordinators. Of course, they're in England. We're here in New Mexico. We're doing this all over Zoom, and we had to do that. We had the nonprofit we're working, bringing trainings in. Of course, we have our jobs. We have our families. So it was a big, and I just talked myself out of ever doing it again. So this is good. It was a lot of work. Next slide, please. Yes, please. one of our training trips to England. The
Where's my
adapters.
mommy?
Got those.
It's still gonna be all right. There.
So that was Zia drone operators. They were doing some films for us in our 7 months out video there. That was our training trip to England. So we trained with a lady named Dawn. Dawn had rode the ocean a couple times. By then, she's since done it, I think, 2 more times. She just rode the Pacific. But we went and did our training there. Here's just some photos of kind of this whole journey up to this point. We have us getting the boat. That's when we first picked it up, when it was shipped to us from England in the upper left. Jared in the cabin, kind of learning the electronics. On the right is us in Florida, one of our first training rows with it. We had some training on the left, Jared and I doing a podcast in the mid on the bottom, and then the bottom right is just a snippet of food we had to bring with us. We had to bring 60 days worth of food, and that's one person's 60 days worth of food right there. So we had 3 times that packed on our boat for all the food we needed. I believe we have another video coming up. Now, we know it'll come to a shock, but the ocean is much rougher than Navajo. That is one lesson we learned out there very quickly. We tried our best, but it was rougher. So here's our route we took. We're starting La Gomera, which is the Canary Islands, part of Spain, really closer to the West Sahara in Africa. And we're going to row 3,000 miles to the west and south to Antigua. Here's an interesting fact. There's been about 6,100 people who have summited Mount Everest. So since the 50s, about 6,100 people. There's only been about 1,562. That number's probably a little closer now to 1,600 who have rode an ocean. So pretty awesome. For a couple years, those of you who don't know, I tried to summit Mount Everest for a few years and years ago. Wasn't able to make it, but I did cross the ocean. So I'm in a more elite group. So we get to La Gomera. At very end of November. It was the day after Thanksgiving we left, or was it?
Yes, Sunday.
Yeah, the Sunday after Thanksgiving we left here, and we flew to, Mike and Darlene got there. Jared and I got delayed, and flights got canceled. But we made it there on time. So 43 teams, 127 rowers, only 3 U.S. teams in the race last year, December of 2022. 3 U.S. teams were us, Team Guardian, a team called Fight or Die. We'll talk about them. Another team called Shut Up and Row. They were really serious. So the other 2 teams were military teams, and then us. You can see the boats lined up in the park there. This is the boat park. Our boat is missing. I'll tell you about that here in a minute. So, pre-race inspection. First thing, our boat was delayed. So, we shipped our boat this time last year, September. We drove it to South Carolina. I think South Carolina, put it on a shipping, with the shippers to get shipped out to La Gomera. And we did this so we would have plenty of time and a boat wouldn't be delayed, because the year before, the American teams, their boat was delayed. We get to La Gomera and find out our boat's delayed. Like, I land, and we're about to take the ferry over, and I get a phone call saying our boats are delayed, us and the American team. And so just it ended up kind of being a pain, but we got our boat. Now, luckily, we had done so much work prior to, our boat was ready to go. These other teams had like a week to get their boats ready, finalize their boat, shine them up, buff them, make sure, take everything out, put it back in about 3 or 4 times, make sure they had everything right where they wanted. We had a day. They unloaded our boat. You can see the middle photo there. It's coming off. They picked it up with a crane off the boat. They put it in the boatyard there. All the other boats are out of the boatyard. They're in the water by now. It's our boat and the other American team. And we're getting our inspections done, and we're getting our food inspections, our equipment inspections, and then they're also testing our knowledge this time. They're going through, how does this work? How does that work?
So basically, they offloaded our boat into the boatyard on Friday afternoon. On Saturday afternoon, they want us to load the boat onto the water. And I'm like going, can we have a full day? And no, it'll be easier for you to finish up while it's on the water. So Jared is on the water trying to put the remaining stickers on the boat. And it's like, we could have really, but the reason why we could get the boat in less than 24 hours later, we had the boat on the water ready to launch, is because of our closet engineer right here. He was so squared away, and it was literally a matter of just laying stuff out, and they go, yeah, you got it all, and put it all back on the boat now. And it was, all that credit really goes to Mark. Just Jared and I were cannon fodder on that part of it.
It was a team effort. It really was.
That's why
I appreciate it. So December 12th, 2022, we thought we were going to get delayed. We thought the race was going to get delayed. I can tell you on December 11th, 2022, we are standing at the docks where we're going to leave from, and the wind is blowing in our face. And we can't leave in that. And there were some big storms north of us, a couple hurricanes, I think, and they were worried it was going to delay us. But in the end, they said, nope, we're going to be good. We're gonna be able to leave at our scheduled time of December 12th. Now, I wrote in here scariest moment. I'll let Mike tell about his scariest moment. I'm not even sure when that was, but this is my scariest moment right here. Everyone asks what was the scariest time right here, where you see us rowing away, okay? I'm about from me to the front row from Robin, about as far as I am now, and I'm watching her leave, and I'm thinking, I hope I know what I just got us into. I really don't, but I hope it's what I think it is, and this is going to go smooth, because it was pretty scary at that point knowing we're at a point of no return. We could have turned around and gotten in, but we'd have gotten a lot of weird looks. And so we're at a point of no return. And that was, for me, the scariest moment. Yours?
I don't know. I was never scared, but I watched a video of us from the team that videoed us, watched that of us rowing away from the dock and rowing out into, and I had an anxiety attack. I'm going, never again. I realized how stupid I really was.
We're glad, because we needed a third team member. So life at sea. We got out. I really don't remember a lot about the first couple days. I mean, it is a blur. in terms of we're starting to, get onto our row shifts. We rode what we decided when we talked here a couple years ago. We had kind of an idea, maybe 2 hours on, 2 hours off, and we got out there, and what we ended up doing was a 2 hour on, 1 hour off shift. So every 2 hours, so we're offset from each other. So there's two people on the oars at all times. So Mike and I'd row, and in an hour he'd leave and Jared would come on, and we'd row for an hour, and then I'd leave and Mike would come back on, and then another hour Jared would leave and I'd get on, and we just kind of did this round robin, and it kept two of us on almost all the time. At night we took a 4 hour break each, offset from each other, so it put one person rowing the boat for 6 hours a day, and it gave us a well-needed rest. I estimate. So we each rode for 14 hours a day. I estimate we each got about 6 hours of sleep a day total is all it was, and that's broken up. You'd wake up frequently. Mike would leave. He'd go in the cabin for his break, and he'd be in there for 10 minutes, and then you'd see the light come on in the cabin and rustling around, and you're like, no. And he'd pop out, and he'd say, you've got 45 minutes left. Your time distortion is so off because you're so tired and you're so nervous about like oversleeping and the guy who you're supposed to relieve, having to row longer. So you'd be up in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, up, ready to go, starting to put your stuff. That happened to us multiple times. And of course, then you go back to bed and you oversleep. And the guy's like, hey, where you at? But that's just how it works. Eating, calorie counts, we each, about the same amount, about 5,000 calories per person per day is what we had to have with us. Now, we didn't eat that much. I'll get into seasickness here. Actually, I can't see that far. No, okay, I'll get into that in a little bit on sickness. But about 5,000 calories each, that's freeze-dried food, that's a lot of snack packs. And we had our jet boil, which is just a little stove. We would have fresh water, boil it, and make our food, and try to eat as much as we could. I know I had a raging appetite the whole time. So much I thought I'm going to gain weight on this trip. And because Jared, he lost his appetite, and he's like, here, you can have all these Oreos and all this fun stuff he brought. So I was, bring it on. I'll eat it all. And Mike, you were kind of in between, if I remember. There's a lot of things quit tasting good.
I brought things that I loved, past tense. M&Ms, peanut M&Ms, loved those, past tense. There were so many, and you go to taste them, like we tasted all of this food before we went. Make sure that what you bring is what you're gonna like, because that's what you're gonna eat for 60 days, give or take. And so we tasted all this food, and I brought this food. I'm going, man, this tastes amazing at home. And then we get out there, and you're rowing it. I threw one away. I ate the first one, forced myself to eat it. The second time I opened up a package of pad thai, and I threw it overboard after the first spoonful. I'm going, this is not going down or staying down. And it's just horrid how your food tastes change. Well, now I would like to still eat peanut M&Ms, and Darlene will buy some, and I'll go to put them to my mouth, and I can smell the sea air, and I was like, no, that's good, thank you, no. A couple, and she'll remember which ones I can't stand now, but it's horrid. So I had peanut M&Ms and all of this stuff, and I'm going, hey, you guys want peanut M&Ms? And just giving them bags of my food, because it was like, you were hungry, but you weren't sometimes. Now, except for Mark. And we're like, if you left your food laying around, no, I'm just kidding. Wasn't quite that bad. But yeah, we were, if there was anything, we're like going, I don't want to eat this. And you just hold it up, and an arm would reach out and snatch it away, and I'll take that. So, but that was it. Jared really struggled with his appetite at the beginning. He's not here to defend himself, so we can tell all kinds of stories, whatever we want. But I brought ramen noodles, and I kind of used to think I liked ramen noodles. I did one, and then after that, he was ramen noodles tasted good to him for whatever reason, so he was eating all of the ramen noodles I would give him and stuff like that, which I was happy for, and any row shift he didn't miss was a blessing. So,
I still eat M&Ms and Oreos and every other thing I ate there. So that did not change my sweet tooth. So here's a video of kind of just rowing out in the ocean. You can kind of get a feel for how much the boat's rocking and moving around. I promise I did row. I know I'm not in this video. I did row sometimes. And that was about a typical day at sea. We had days rougher. We had, some higher seas early on. We had, I estimate, probably about 20-foot swells. Sometimes it got real fun. We get to the top of these swells, and if you hit your oars just right, you could kind of surf down the swell. But I know Mike and I were on the oars one time, and we hit one just perfect. And I mean, we came down fast, and water was spraying on either side of the boat. It was a lot of fun. I do remember that. Another quick little fact, we each took about 650,000 row strokes. So about 2 million strokes total. So good. If you get on your rowing machine and you start, doing a couple 30 minutes on the rowing machine, count the oar strokes, and then realize we did about 650,000. Some more life at sea. Wildlife, dolphins. Mike and I on the oars, first time, within the first week, and I see something out of the corner of our eye. It was early in the morning, I remember, and some dolphins, a pod of dolphins were by us, kind of just following around with us. And then Mike was on the oars one day, and he yelled, "Shark," which we all stopped, and it was whales. The video you saw earlier, those whales, that was our video from us, and there was 2 whales. They stuck with us for about an hour or two. They'd circle around the boat. They'd get in the swells. They'd go down the swells really quick. It was really, really neat to see. Got so close to the boat, turning, looking. You could see their eye. One of them had a hole in his dorsal fin. I imagine he was tagged at some point, or some radio beacon or something. We picked the oars up to keep from hitting the whale. I'm not going to hurt the whale, but probably more worried about hurting our oars. We had one shark follow us for about an hour one day, about 50 yards behind the boat, just kind of staying in the swells behind us, which was fine with us. Marlin. If you remember, we probably talked about this a couple years ago. Marlin were our fear. They will pierce the boat. They will come up and hit the boat and put a hole in the boat. So they were our biggest fear. We probably had about 5 marlin come around us. And you'd see them. They had this big, really blue fin that would stick out of the water, really curved, bright blue. And that was our... But we had about 5 marlin. Some got really close to the boat. I mean, I remember Jared's hitting an oar on the water, yelling at the thing to get away. And I imagine if you look at the boat from in the water, you see this long, slender thing. You see these oars just kind of hitting the water randomly, the rudder. I imagine it looks like some type of injured, baby whale or something, so they're going for that. Birds. The birds amaze me. Now, I must have gotten my birdology from Hollywood, because I thought I was only going to see birds at near land on either side. I remember some pirate ship in some movie saying, "I see birds, we must be close to land." There were birds the entire row across the ocean. Middle of the ocean, there's birds flying around. They got different the closer we got to land. The birds changed, but there were birds the entire row, which I thought was really interesting. Only one time did they land on the boat. We were kind of pretty close to land at that time. But you just see them flying around. The other thing I just remembered now, the flying fish. They told us you're going to see flying fish. Now, I thought it's just fish with big fins and they just jump out of the water. These fish would go 50 to 100 yards in the air. And I found it rather amusing when you're sleep deprived of watching them hit the waves when they land on. It looks awful. And then in the mornings, at nighttime, you'd be rowing and they're attracted to the lights on the boat. So in the mornings, you'd have fish anywhere from that big to 8 inches or so. Jared wouldn't touch them. I know we'd leave them on deck for Jared, but he wouldn't want to touch them. So weather. You know, we didn't have a thermometer with us, crazy enough. We had no way to measure how hot it was. I think I put in here about high 80s for the highs. Outside, in the cabins, over 100 for sure and humid. But during the day, and then 50s at night. Here, you want to talk about nighttime?
Yeah, our friends that rode the year before, they're, oh man, it is so warm. You won't hardly want to wear clothes at all. And yeah, we're freezing. We're from New Mexico. Maybe that didn't help anything, but I'd crawl in the cabin for my 4 hours of off time, and I had a heavy weather coat, and it was heavy, thick, and I'm curled up underneath that, trying not to freeze to death at night. So I felt like, just so I could go to sleep. Yeah, the weather was way colder than I was expecting it to be, and then when you're tired, that really doesn't help anything at all. Yeah, he's talking about the birds landing on the boat the one time. I was fixing to get into the cabin. It was time for my break, so I was going to go in the cabin and lay down, and there was something right in front of my face, and I couldn't see what it was. It just kept right in front of my face, and I'm like, what is that? And I realized it's one of those birds, and there was another one sitting on the back of the boat. Well, I got it to leave me alone, so I went ahead and got in the cabin. Well, then it started pestering Jared while he was trying to row, and then it decided that wasn't any fun, and I was trying to sleep, so they needed to do a dance on the roof of the cabin while I was trying to sleep. Yeah, the wildlife was a real joy, other than the other two people I was rowing with.
The real wildlife. Ooh, that was loud. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you go back to the weather? You know, we talk about weather. People ask about storms. We never really had storms. We had rain squalls that would come hit us. You'd see the cell of rain coming at you. And there were times you'd be in the cabin ready to come out to row. And if the guys on deck, if they weren't mad at you, they'd say, stay in there. Just don't come out right now, because you can see you're about to get hit with this rain squall. And so the rain squall would hit, soak everything, and then be over. But we never had really, bad storms. We never had a full day that was not sunny, which is good because we need that power. We need that solar power to charge our batteries. We talked about the seas, a weather router. We had a weather router back here on land we were talking to daily or almost daily, and just kind of giving us an idea. We can't get away from the storms, but at least we know what we're going to be facing if we were going to be facing. When it started getting rainier, they were going to tell us, you guys are going to get wet tomorrow. It's going to be raining a bunch. Injuries and illness, believe it or not, we had no seasickness. We were shocked. A lot of the other teams experienced seasickness. We had experienced some seasickness in training. Poor Mike in England got seasick, and Jared and I thought, what a wimp. And then we got to Florida. Mike got sick. We're like, yeah, see. And then Jared got sick, and I got sick. We're all sick. And then we got out to on the race, and none of us got sick. We had kind of dialed down our medicine. Jared and I had taken some scopolamine, which is a patch you put behind your ear. And in Florida, we did that, and we were hallucinating. So we decided we're not taking that again. And
You had to have been there. But Jared and I, we're all three of us who were in the scopolamine patch, after we'd all thrown up. And so it's a necessary thing. And so we're rowing, and Mark's like, we can't go this direction. Why not? This is the direction we're heading. He goes, can't you guys see the trees and the car lights? And Jared and I are looking, no, can't see it. It is pitch black. We could see pitch black. That's all we could see, dark in front of us. There's cars. I could see the cars and the trees. You guys are blind. It's like, yeah, we are.
To my credit, it was night, and there was land. It was just 2 miles away. So we had other stuff. Shins. I wrote shins here. So those are my shins, you see. It's kind of hard to see in the picture. They're really beat up. And what happened early on, I'm rowing. I start getting blisters on my feet. Your feet are strapped in. You start getting blisters on your feet from just where they rub. And so I moved my feet up. You can move your feet up and down on what they call these foot stretchers. Well, I moved my feet up. And then a little while later, I start hitting my shins with the oars, and the wave will catch the oar, and you're talking the handle of the oar, it's 1.5 inch diameter wood, and a wave hits the blade, and it comes back and hits you in the shin. It's like somebody hitting you with a bat in the shins. And it kept happening over and over and over again to me. And I've sometimes it takes things happening to me a lot to realize what's going on. So about 30 days of this, I realized it's because I lifted my feet up in those foot stretchers. Then my legs are higher and the oars are hitting my shins. So I was able to move my feet back down. Trust me, you'd much rather deal with blisters than whacking your shins. Bums, we all had sore bums. They warned us about this. You sit on your butt rowing for 16 hours a day, you're going to get blisters and sore bums. And so that's definitely a reality at the ocean rowing. Other than that, it was daily aches and pains. You know, one day something would hurt, and then the next day it'd go away, something else would hurt. And some of the other things we had, life at sea, water making. Every day we had to use our water, our desalinator, power it up and make water. We had some issues with that. I'll talk about that in a little bit. We had our power plan. We have our 2 lithium batteries, our solar panels. Every day I'm watching the charge of our batteries, and I'm logging that in because eventually I start to see we're starting to lose power. And I realize later it's because as we're moving west, we're staying on England time, UTC time, but so when we're doing things at a certain time, the sun's at a different location. So we're making power, but the sun's not high in the sky, so we had to adjust things. So there's a lot of stuff to do on the boat. Safety check-in, they said, about every 2 or 3 days we'll call you, so you had to turn your sat phone on every day at noon, leave it on for an hour, wait for them to call you. And then we had some malfunctions. All the work we did on the boat here, everything we did, and we had some malfunctions. One of the first ones that was very scary to me, we're about a week in, the seats roll back and forth, if you remember, and I start seeing, well, we heard at one of them, the seat bearings, like, hey, I think the bearing's going out on this. We're only a week in, and a bearing's going out on this. Now, we had spares with us, but I realized these bearings that we put in, we thought were good, they were rusting really quick. And that's really scary to me. I mean, I'm freaking out thinking, what are we going to do if we lose these seat bearings? Because that's where we get our power from the row. You can't just sit and row this boat. You need your legs. So I'm devising stuff in my head. Okay, here's what we're going to cut up to use to build. Totally MacGyver it out there. And I was ready. But we ended up, you know, we pulled all the wheels, packed all the bearings. We had tubes of Vaseline stuff gets squeaky on the boat. So Vaseline, and just got it all going. And I had to do that about every couple weeks. We do that to keep those going. And luckily they held out on us. Our AIS is our system that tells us that there's boats around. It started giving us a malfunction. Great thing, if you listen to any of them, we were calling every Friday back here and doing a radio interview with Car Talk Radio at Horace Nissan. And Glenn and Cliff, they're big boat guys. So after radio shows, I'm troubleshooting the AIS system with these guys. Like, what's going on here? And they were able to help us figure out we were getting salt water and some antenna connections. And sure enough, that's what it was. We got that fixed. Had to do that a couple times. We also had problems with our water maker. Again, found out very early, very nerve-wracking. Our water maker's not holding pressure. Not a big deal. Got on the phone with the right people, and we knew the system well enough, we were able to just reset it. And we got it to work every day. So one of the other things pretty cool at sea is coming across other boats. We saw about 12 other boats out at sea. Only one time did we see a rowboat. Mike and I were on deck, and we saw a rowboat. It was a team of 4 ladies that passed us, and no hard feelings. But we saw other boats like this. This is most of what we saw. Large cargo ships. We saw some sailboats. Some we never saw them. We knew they were close because our AIS was telling us that they were close. But this video, when we would come across another boat, this is what we would have to do. So you'll hear me talk to this boat on the radio. So we have a AIS alarm going off. That's our automatic information system. Saying a dangerous target, basically a collision course with another boat. Looking at that, it is it's a cargo ship about 7 miles from us, and it's a lot bigger than us, 200 meters. So we're going to go ahead and call them. It's like the name of it is Avocet Arrow. And so we're going to go ahead and try and call them on the radio, just so you know we're here. Avocet Arrow. What's the key yellow over?
calling, Boston Arrow.
Avisaderos, KDLO, go to channel 05.
05, okay. Yeah, Boston Arrow.
Yes, Avisaderos, KDLO. Just popped up on our radar. Looks like you're about 6.5 miles northwest of us. Just want to let you know we're a rowboat with limited maneuvering capabilities. Just want to make sure you see us and can avoid us. Over.
I'm waiting and keeping in my port side. I am monitoring now my starboard. Do you copy, over?
10-4 copy. You'll keep us on your starboard side. Over.
Negative. I will keep you on my port side. I am altering now to starboard. I will alter to starboard. Over.
Copy that. You'll keep us on your port side. We appreciate it, sir. You have a wonderful day.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
KDLA going back to 16. Out. That's it. So just made contact with them. They know we're here. They know we're just a rowboat. They probably knew we were here anyway. Their AIS was also probably going off. And they have maneuvered starboard. So they've turned to the right for them, which is more south. And they're going to keep us on their port side. So that's all part of the game out here, is making sure we stay safe. So we, like I said, ran about 12 other boats, probably one of the coolest ones. I don't have a photo of it. If you look it up online, it's called, oh no, I forget the name. What's the name of the boat? No. Anyway, it was I'm about to tell these guys something. I'm about to ask them a question on the boat. We're rowing. I was about to say, I wonder how many boats are out here just floating in the ocean. And I look up, and there's this giant pirate ship. And it was truly, it's this 3-masted, big square sails, and we called them on the radio, and they're a charter boat. You can like join them and sail across the ocean with them. And it was really neat. I'll remember the name before the end. I'm sorry. Anyway, we saw some sailboats. Here's some photos. This is in the boat, on the water, cleaning. Mike was the first one to do it. It was a lot of work. Getting in the water was a lot of work. You're wanting to, you're wanting. He let go of everything. Of course, you're tied off with a rope, but it starts moving away from the boat very quickly. And scraped the barnacles off the bottom of the boat. We were sure that's why we were going so slow. It was all the barnacles on the boat. And middle picture here was just us rowing. To the right, we had another issue. We were taking water. When we were trying to fix our water maker, we opened up the center compartment of the boat, which is where our life raft is kept, and there was 8 inches of water in there. And so we finally figured out what was going on. Water was coming in from waves hitting us on the, the starboard side, was coming in through the bilge hose and going down and filling this compartment up. So we had to fix that. So little things come up, you got to be able to take care of them and fix them. But after 51 days, 17 hours, and 18 minutes, we made it. It was pretty awesome. I'm sorry, my finished video we have wasn't working for us. I didn't have a copy of it actually, but it took 51 days, 17 hours, 18 minutes, and that was an amazing feeling to step off the boat onto land, and very wobbly. If you saw us.
51 days, 17 hours, 18 minutes to the finish line. And then another half an hour to the dock. The tide was going out something. It just took us forever to go to the dock. That was the horrible part, is you're so close, and it doesn't get any closer for the longest time.
It was like concrete.
We made bad decisions from the beginning, like I said, like getting on the boat and leaving La Gomera. But then when we get to the finish line, we're like going, oh, well, Mark can row us to the dock. And that was another bad decision. It should have been all 3 of us on the oars. It was bad. Probably the most fun was getting off of the boat and seeing our wives for the first time in 51 days. We were tough. When we left, we'll call on Friday. We're leaving on Monday. we're getting ready to row away. We'll call on Friday. That way it'll give us something to look forward to. We were calling Monday night, Tuesday, every night of the week, every sometime during the day. It was, yeah, we weren't as tough as we thought we were. The other picture he doesn't have up there, Jared is 35 years old. Mark turned 43 in January while we were rowing. I turned 60 this last July, this just, a month and a half ago. So I gave them, if you've ever watched the movie Up with the cartoon, and that kid needed to help the elderly do something. So I had my little brother make t-shirts for them, helping the elderly cross the Atlantic, just so, for fun.
It was fun. Speaking of the elderly, I do want to throw a big thanks to Dr. Stuart Adams. And Mike doesn't even know about this, but I want to, Dr. Adams, and really he helps all the teams. This is the inventor of Advil. We took Advil like Skittles, so really he was an integral part of our trip across the ocean. Really, though, our experience, these are before and afters the race took. And in talking about some of our experience out there, we talked a little bit about the exhaustion. I'll talk about the being humbled. I mean, humbled by the ocean, humbled by the experience, humbled by the support of the community, humbled by the cause, humbled by how rough the ocean is, how strong some of the other rowers we rowed with were. We talked about the equipment failures, the support from home, the teamwork to get across. We had our good days. We had our bad days. I mean, one of the things, Jared and I talk about it a lot, and one of the things that resonates with us the most, actually, was we're having a bad day. So we took off. We were doing really well. Those of you tracking us early on, you're like, wow, these guys know what they're doing. They're like in number 2 of the trios, and we thought, yeah, we're pretty awesome. And we're rowing. Remember, we weren't sick. Everybody else was. And then we started slowing down, and we started getting reports back. Oh, hey, this team's going to pass you. This team, we saw the team of 4 girls pass us. Well, we thought, okay, it's a team of 4 girls, and their name's Full Throttle. Like, we're all government workers. We don't work full throttle. We work like 3/4 throttle at the most. But, then a team of 3 passes. Like, well, okay, it's a team of 3. Well, then a solo rower passes us. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, we knew why. We were sure he's got a motor and he's got to be, on some drugs to getting him across. But we were in the dumps. And Mike's like, guys, listen, remember our cause. Remember, people have bad days. We're having a bad day. They're having a good day. We're having a bad day. And it really brought us back to kind of reality there of absolutely. And remembering what we're doing and remembering it, why we're out there. We always said we weren't going to race. Of course, we're all, a little type A and competitive. And so we started doing really well. And it's like, oh, we could do good. And then reality set in. We're from the desert in New Mexico. We trained on Navajo Lake, and we're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So Fight or Die, back there, Fight or Die. Remember, they were one of the American teams. The other American team shut up and row. They did it in like 30-something days. We talked more than they did. So, but Fight or Die was the 3rd American team. And if you remember, if you followed the race at all, they're the ones that capsized. So partway in, kind of, I think end of December, beginning of January, they actually capsized and had to get rescued. They spent 18 hours on a life raft. They got picked up by a 1,000-foot cargo ship. It was an ordeal. They ended up in Canada. Thank goodness they ended up in Canada because they didn't have equipment they needed, like their passports. They were left on the boat. They hadn't put them in their go bag. It was quite an ordeal. And it really reminded you, listening to their story after, of this was serious. And also, I came home and I tried to think of the lessons learned out of this, of when things go bad, they don't go bad on a nice day. And I told our SWAT commander this. I could tell all my guys this. You can carry all the equipment. You can understand how to use it, but things don't go bad on a good day. This was the middle of the night in high seas, and, things aren't going well. The equipment they had to rescue themselves wasn't working. And when it did, they punctured a hole by accident in their life raft, in the top chamber of their life raft. So, again, you got to be prepared. You've got to make decisions. I believe, of course, God's grace, they're alive, but also that was a team of 4 veterans who are able to go in there and make decisions and get things done. We had an agreement before we left. We came up with this, and it's kind of hard to read. I'll read it to you. First thing, and we had this in each cabin where we could see this every day. The first thing, it says, always stay clipped in. We always stay clipped into that boat because if you fell out, we wouldn't be able to get you. Not sinking, just drifting away from you, and that would be an awful thing. Keeping the hatches closed. If the boat were to roll, we want the hatches closed. We are not racing, but keep the boat moving. We told ourselves early on, we're not racing, but keep the boat moving. Being on time for your row shift, helping each other, being forgiving, because you know you're not always going to be on time for that row shift, and you're going to have to do stuff for each other. So being forgiving, open and honest communication, taking care of yourself, cleaning up and keeping all the gear tidy. This is our survival equipment. Taking care of your responsibilities, make an effort, not an excuse, taking the experience, to dig deep, because we know it's going to be hard, and remember why we were here. And again, going back to what Mike told us that day, that's what we needed to remember why we were there. Here's another interesting fact. These two guys, Frank Samuelson and George Harbaugh, in June of 1896, were the first to row the ocean across the North Atlantic as a pair. They went from New York to Southwest England. Took them 55 days, so I'm glad we beat them. Took us 51 days. It took them 55 in that boat. So pretty amazing. Here's the team winners, or the race winners, 31 days, 17 hours. We thought we were going to look like that when we got back. Turns out we didn't. I ate too many Oreos. And then this is the longest at sea. Linda was a solo rower. She took 113 days to cross solo. Now the race winners, tough. We pulled that speed. One time for about 5 minutes, we pulled a speed that it would have taken across in 31 days. We're like, this is not us. This is a lot of work. So that's a certain tough. To be out there 113 days on your own is a totally new kind of tough. So pretty amazing for her. All right. We can row, and we're rowing for an amazing cause. But during this whole row, and even before the row, I wondered, how is God going to use this in my life? You know, I know He put me here, put me in this position. Everything happens, you know, by His hand. And how is God going to use this row in my life? And I thought about this a lot before the row and after the row, or during the row. So to talk about that and to figure out, to tell you my epiphany on the ocean, I'm going to go back to a little bit of navigation, just give a quick class on navigation. So ocean navigation is huge when you're in a rowboat in the middle of the ocean trying to land on a tiny island in the West Indies. So first we have what's called a waypoint, and that's our destination. That's where we're going to. We have what's called a bearing to waypoint. That's if you have your compass and you're standing and you know your waypoint's over there and you hold your compass and it says that is 270 degrees. That's your bearing to waypoint. Your heading is actually the direction in which the boat is facing. We have a cross-track error, which is the distance you get off track. And then what's called your course over ground. So while I'm got my waypoint there and I'm trying to go that way, maybe I'm not quite going that way. There's other factors we're going to see, and that true is called our course over ground. So every day what we did was we'd create a waypoint about 50 to 60 miles out. One time we set one like 200 miles out by Mike's wanting to do, and it's really disheartening when you never get there. So we said after that, shorter waypoints.
We were doing really well, and so it seemed like a good idea. That was the halfway point, that 270 miles. Yeah, that was stupid.
But so we would set waypoints almost all the time, about 50 to 60 miles out, something we knew we could hit. And we had this autopilot, which was really cool. We could get the boat going in the direction we wanted and turn the autopilot on, and it would kind of keep the rudder in the direction. It's kind of measuring which way we're going. It's keeping us on track. And turns out it's not a perfect system for a rowboat. There's a lot of factors that are pushing you out there, like the wind, the current, the swell, whether you have one or two rowers. So all these things that affect us, where the autopilot, which is really made for a faster boat, like a sailboat or a power boat. So here's a perfect, and excuse my illustrations, here's a perfect example of navigation. So we have the start line, our little rowboat. We're going to go 269 degrees west. Really, 269 degrees was a bearing we were on a lot, so that's why I put it in there. And you got the waves kind of going that way. They told us, there's currents going that way, and it'll be lovely. That's perfect. Next slide. Here's reality. So you've got 269 degrees. You got the wind pushing you from the north. You got waves pushing you from the southwest or southeast. You got waves, other waves and swells going one direction. And while you want to go 269 degrees, you're actually going 245 degrees. And now you got to redirect and go 285 degrees. Excuse me. So that's more reality. This is actually a picture from our chart plotter, and you can see a line. I know it's hard to see here, but you can kind of see a line coming down the middle of that screen. That's our actual line, where before the wind started pushing us off the screen, we were just kind of going across, and then the wind started pushing us down. And so, like I said, a lot of things affected our navigation, and the navigation was not that easy. And they weren't always detectable. These things weren't always detectable. The slight changes in the wind, sometimes at night, and when we would go from 2 rowers to 1 rower, thank you, go from 2 rowers to 1 rower, and now all of a sudden we have half the power. So these weren't always detectable things. And then you look at the chart plotter where you're actually going, and you realize you're way off course. So it took continual adjustment to counteract these forces that were against us on the row. So 30 days in, took me another 30 days. It's kind of my aha moments. 30 days in, I kind of realized what God's message is to me, and that is, what is my spiritual waypoint? Where am I going with in my life in terms of my faith? What's my course over ground trying to get there? What are the factors in my life that are my wind and swells that are affecting me getting to that spiritual waypoint? And when was the last time I closely examined that cross-track error to see how far off I was of my spiritual waypoint? And of course, our spiritual waypoint is to glorify God. So, and I ask you to think about it. What are your responses to that? What's your spiritual waypoint? What are the factors in your life that are affecting you on that? Our spiritual navigation also needs continuous attention. Of course, our course is set, our charts, if we will, are set by the Word of God, and that's to keep us on track. That's the truth. And we have to continually be aware of all those things that affect us personally and our course over ground, because they're coming at us from all sorts of directions. And sometimes they seem small and sometimes they seem innocent, but there's a term we'd use in shooting that works here as well, and that is deviation is magnified by distance. It may be a little off now, but the further it goes, you're way off. The further we let it go, the further we don't get it in check and bring ourselves back to where we should be, we're all of a sudden way off. Again, our ultimate waypoint is God. At our church, Providence Presbyterian Church, we use the Westminster Confession of Faith, and in that we have the Larger Catechism. And the very first question in the Larger Catechism is, what is the chief and highest end of man? And that is to glorify God and fully enjoy Him forever. And so, again, to me, that's our waypoint. That is where we want to get to, where we want to go. Think of Ephesians 4:11 through 14. It says, and He gave the apostles, the prophets, and the evangelists, the shepherds and teachers, to equip the saints for the work of the ministry, for building up the body of Christ, until we all attain to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to mature manhood, to measure of the stature to the fullness of Christ, so that we may no longer be children, tossed to and fro by the waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by human cunning, by craftiness and deceitful schemes. We were tossed around by the waves a lot and trying to get to our waypoint. And what a perfect passage to bring those together and to compare those about our spiritual journey and our spiritual navigation and the navigational aids we have through our apostles and our teachers, our pastors and elders. Some of the forces upon us in 1 Peter 5:8, he talks, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. Again, what are those winds? What are those waves? What are those swells, those currents, some things you can't see, these little things we allow into our lives. And again, this is all coming to me on the row, and really, God's really talking to me on the row about this. And I was really excited to get back and get some of this down. Our true course, for those who live according to the flesh, set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. For to set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the Spirit is life and peace. For the mind that is set on the flesh is hostile to God, for it does not submit to God's law. Indeed, it cannot. Those who are in the flesh cannot please God. So our true course is to set our mind on the things of the Spirit and on God. So I ask you this. What is your course over ground in life? And to think about that. I have some cards at the end. Come get with me, some little business-type cards. And they ask that question. And I printed those out to give out at these talks that people can have and look at daily. It took us looking at the navigation stuff every couple hours to see if we were getting pushed off course. And so I think the same thing in our spiritual life, that we've got to be watching that daily and knowing. So as a reminder, put it in your wallet, put it on your mirror, put it on your fridge, put it in your car. Ask yourself, what's my course over ground? And am I headed in the right direction, or am I off and I need to make an adjustment? So to kind of end here, set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on the earth, from Colossians 3:2. You can follow us. We're still on Facebook. Things have slowed down. We had to get back into work. And school started back up, had a bunch of honeydews, like 4 years worth. But we're still going. Guardian's still going. We're still working we're training and for our first responders, and bringing in, we're looking to be bringing in some training the beginning of next year. We're still available for help on that. So you can continue to follow us, share the mission. Please, if you know first responders, again, if by all means, if they're suffering, they can reach out to us. Our phone numbers are on the website. I'm not a clinician, but I'm willing to talk to anybody anytime. I know the other guys are as well. And help people get the help that they need, and also again, think about your course over ground. Encourage them to think of their course over ground. So, questions? Okay, 3. No dumb questions. Great question. So did we go into it knowing we were going to have challenges or not? I think yes, we absolutely knew, which was really a driving force behind that team agreement. I think some of the challenges we experienced out there were we didn't expect as much. We were prepared for some, like I put little stuff, the seat bearings, which was not little, it's big, but I put all new seat bearings in the boat. So I didn't think that was going to be a problem, but it ended up being a problem. But we were prepared. We were able to come up with a solution. One of the challenges I think we realized the most was when we trained, and we didn't notice this till we got out, but when we trained, of course, Navajo was, kind of calm. But when we trained on the ocean, we did train in the ocean, we would train one person rowing, one person on watch, one person sleeping, and we rotated every hour. And that was because you're close to shore. We didn't run into anything. We never trained two up in heavy seas. And we got out there and we're whacking oars with each other. And that hurts your arms when you hit somebody's oars really hard. But we just weren't ready for that challenge. We hadn't prepared for that, and we had to kind of improvise and learn together as a team. So I think we knew there were going to be challenges. Some of the challenges we were anticipating, we didn't have, I think, at least that I was anticipating. And an example that I thought for sure we would have some more sparks on the boat. We didn't. I mean, we had a little bit, right? 3 guys, 51 days, tight space, all type A's, and we were going to have something, but nothing major. It really wasn't anything, and we all talked to this day. So I was concerned about that and worried about, especially as team captain, like, okay, what am I going to do, and if there's a problem? But we didn't have that. But then other things popped up. We actually lost one of our radios broke. It's like, what are we going to do? Well, nothing we can do. So little challenges like that.
first 3 days, we could see Tenerife and La Gomera in the distance for 3 days. We, toward the end of the third day, finally, La Gomera disappeared in the distance, and we could no longer see. And so then every morning you get up, you look out the front of the boat, and you go, that looks like where we rode yesterday. And you look out the back of the boat and goes, that looks like the front of the boat. The side, it didn't matter. It all looked the same every day, day in and day out for 51 days and not quite 18 hours. But you get up and you're not really prepared for that. I don't, there's just no way. You're not, I would like to be able to explain the exhaustion that we felt, and you're tired and all of that, but you get up in the, after you finally get your 4-hour break, and which means about 3 hours of sleep, and you wake up and you get out and you sit down to start rowing, and you're realizing you didn't really move that far. You did. The guys rowed as hard as they could while they were on the oars, but when you're only going 1 mile an hour, you didn't go that far, and you can't really fix that mentally. Like you said, especially when the other two teams passed us, well, the solo and the 4 ladies passed us. A lot of times, and we do this in life, we see somebody else succeeding, and we see them, and we go, well, why aren't we, I'm working hard over here, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, why are they moving so fast, and I'm sitting still, basically? Why are they succeeding? Maybe I'm not in the right area in my life. We start doubting decisions that we made. We start looking at things that we should be doing, or we start looking at, if you're married, you start looking at your partner going, it's her fault. It always is, but I know I'll pay for that later, but it's all right, it's all good. And it's not, but we start comparing to what other people are doing, and that adds to the stress of getting up and just seeing wide open ocean. And also, one thing we didn't talk about, I can't swim. I get, when I fall off the diving board, because I can't dive. When I fall off the diving board, I can swim to the edge of the pool or whatever, but nowhere close to where, 15,000 foot down is going to help anybody. And so you understand that when you get out of, if you decide I'm done, there's no getting off and just going, it's just, you're there till we saw land, and then we cross the finish line and we get to light the flares and give each other a hug and high five, and then another half an hour before we finally touch land. Yeah, there's a whole lot of mental exhaustion that you just can't prepare for, as much as you'd like to think. Yeah, we spent time on the boat, we slept on the boat before the row, and it was just night and day different doing it. You had one more. It really wasn't that bad. It really wasn't. I never once, I can't swim. And when they first asked me to join them on this, I'm like going, I'm stupid, but I don't know if I quite reached that level. But then I agreed to go to Florida when they shipped the boat over from England to get on it and try, and to see what it was like. And when I got on the boat out in Florida for the first time, it's like, this isn't bad at all. I was never afraid that, this next wave is going to tip us over, I'm going to fall in the water, I'm going to be done type of deal. It was never like that. I was afraid they would think my surname was Jonah, but I was never concerned about the other.
Yeah, the swells are kind of big, and they're kind of fun, like I say, because they're going the direction we wanted them to. I will say, I thought before the row, I thought I was going to have a scared moment out there, at a time when I realized I'm on this little tiny toothpick of a boat in 15,000 feet of water with nothing around. And I, like Mike, I never had that. The boat was so, as much as it rocked around, it was so stable. When we did take a wave on the side, you know, there's times when you take a wave and, I mean, throw you off your seat. You're tied in, and you got safety guards on the side that you know, fall into, normally with your head, and it kinks your neck sideways. But you realize how quick the boat went back upright. And so it's very reassuring on that. So, was there a, yes, sir? We did not fish. We thought about it before we left, but we didn't bring anything. We had some survival fishing equipment and a life raft, but we didn't fish. There are teams that do it, but I'll tell two things. That boat is dirty, and it would have been even dirtier fishing if we'd caught something. I'm just pretty confident we would have caught something, right? It would have gotten even dirtier had we caught something. But two, when we were on our off breaks, so some teams row 2 hours on, 2 hours off. So they have 2 hours off. We had 1 hour off. And at that 1 hour, you're on the oars thinking, what am I going to do on my break? Because if I need to eat, that's 30 minutes because I got to go, I got to get my food, I got to get the water put in, I got to get it heated up, I got to let the food sit and I eat. I mean, that's 30 minutes right there. If it's bathing, that's your whole time to get fresh water and bathe because trust me, that boat's rocking. You have to hold on with one hand and sponge bath and then switch hands, and it's a lot of work. So we really didn't have time to do a lot of extra stuff like fish. No, I'm not. I don't know. Maybe Mike is. I'm not. But it took a while. I'll be honest. I was in kind of a brain fog for probably a month coming back. I mean, it was really just. I remember being at work. I think Jared kicked out of it a little quicker than I did because he'd come in and be like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "I just rode an ocean." And you did too. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you like this? But it took probably about a month of being in kind of a brain fog and just getting back to the swing of things for sure. It took about 3 or 4 days to walk straight. You walk like you're drunk. So funny story. So we get off the boat and you don't realize how you can't walk, and then you step off on land and you're like rubber legs all over the place. They're grabbing you to keep you from falling. The next day we had to go down to clean the boat because it was the middle of the night. So they said, just leave the boat here. Come clean it the next day. You get back on the boat and you're fine. You can stand on one leg on the boat in the water, but off on shore you can't stand still at all. So I'll answer the water, and you can answer the food. So water. So we would fire up the water maker every day. We had 4 10-liter jugs. So like, was that 3.5 gallons or something around there, 3 gallons. So we had 4 of those on board, 1 for each of us, and then a spare one that we could just use for bathing water. And it would have been, the idea before leaving is, okay, you have 1 to drink every day, and then so we could each drink 10 liters a day, or use it for cooking, and then we had another jug if you needed to wash clothes or something. We didn't drink enough. It's hard, so we didn't drink enough water. Probably on average, the 3 of us consumed total with everything we needed water for: cooking, cleaning, and drinking, probably 30 liters. So every day we would redo 30 liters. It took about an hour and a half to make that water. It's just coming out of a little pipe, almost a drip, a little bit more than a drip, and it's about 30 liters a day.
We brought back, between the 3 of us, a 30-gallon bag of food. So, yeah, between snacks and freeze-dried food. And a lot of it, though, we started when we realized, like, I'm never eating this ever type of thing. We started opening up the package and dumping the contents overboard and then putting the package away. And you got to thinking, why am I wasting my time doing that? Just move it to one side and store it. And it turned out to be a whole lot easier that way. We put it in a special spot, and it worked out well. Missionary coming through, heading to Alaska, they took a lot of that, so it was a help to them.
Besides your wives, what did you miss the most? And what was the first meal you had?
Missed the most. I definitely my wife and family, but probably just being able to stand or sit without having to hold on to something. Because you can't just stand on the boat. You have to be, holding on to something, and you're trying to kneel down. You're just rocking side to side. So probably just really solid ground. Just, sounds kind of silly out there. Food wise, I think, having something cold to drink. Water wasn't too bad. It wasn't hot, but it wasn't too bad. The first meal, so they feed you. You come off the boat, they feed you right there. It's like hamburgers and French fries, and it's kind of awkward because everybody, standing around you, looking, watching you eat. But that was the first meal. It was delicious too. It was delicious.
It was okay. The great thing about it was, there was a chair and a table that did not move. They could have literally given us a thing of freeze-dried food. I wouldn't have cared. But the chair and the table didn't move. That's what I liked.
Other questions? All right. Well, here in a minute, I'll just ask Mike to pray for us as we leave today. I appreciate everybody. I've got those cards. Come see me. I'll give you a card, and you can have for your course over ground. And we appreciate everybody's support. Trust me, knowing people were here, we would hear, we were talking to home, whether on the sat phone or through texting, through satellite stuff, we'd hear about the support we were getting from home, and that meant a lot to us. I mean, really, having those down days, but knowing we had such a great community behind us. So thank you all very much, and we appreciate it. So, Mike?
Heavenly Father, oh God, we asked you for watch care, for safety, and you've provided so much more than that. Lord, now as we are back home, that we would pay attention to our direction towards you, but also our interaction with those around us. Lord, we struggle during our times, but there are folks all around us that are hurting every day in and day out. Oh God, bless them. Give us opportunity to speak life and power into their lives. Lord, thank you for this group that was so excited to hear what the three of us were able to do by your grace, your power. Lord, bless them. Help them as they go out from here and talk about the things that they heard and saw. Lord, that they also would be a help and a blessing in the lives they come in contact. Lord, bless as we go home tonight. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.